What is up, guys? Welcome to 84 Gaming Night. Now, tonight is officially the night of my first reaction video. Now, there's been loads and loads and loads of these reaction videos going on from different other YouTubers. Now, I've never made one before. Never made a reaction video before. Now, I know that I mentioned that I work on a Bruce Lee one, which I will. That will be my next one. So this one is the top 10 horror movies everyone needs to watch once. Obviously, as you can tell, this is the first one, top 10, Halloween. So we already know what the top one is. Excuse me. So let's carry on with this. This note's not introduction is necessary. Let's crack on. Obviously, this is my first reaction video, so you'll obviously see my reaction. And I'll be honest, I've seen probably most of these old-fashioned horror movies. But these movies, obviously, to me, just like a lot of people out there, are proper classics. All right, so let's crack on, guys. Here we go.
10. Halloween. John Carpenter's seminal horror film may seem dated when compared to today's more violent and blood-soaked slashers, but it is absolutely required viewing.
I met him 15 years ago. I was told there was nothing left. No reason, no conscience, no understanding, and even the most rudimentary sense of life or death, of good or evil, right or wrong.
Like all great slashers, the story is simple. A group of teenagers is stalked and systematically killed by the masked Michael Myers on Halloween night.
That scene right there is one of the best scenes in movie history, obviously for horror. I just love the fact that if you have seen it, spoiler alert if you haven't, but if you've seen that scene, I think that's one of the greatest. I just love it from where he just gets from A to B. Like literally, as soon as she comes out of the house across the road, and then she's obviously running down, banging on that door as with what we've just seen. Now you've got Tommy coming down, taking his time. I mean, you can imagine at the cinemas at that time, 1978, that people were screaming off their seats to get that little git to that door, literally, because it is just on the edge, and you can see Michael Myers literally just walking casually towards Jamie Lee Curtis, obviously Laurie Strode, and it's such a good scene. It's such put together brilliantly, and you can't ask for anything better than that. I mean, there is obviously other elements to the film that's fucking brilliant, but this is. I mean, it's such a classic film. This anyway. As soon as you hear the music, as soon as it starts, boom, you know what you're in for. It's just a hell of a seat ride. It's like going on a roller coaster ride. It's such a good film. Always gets to you. Always.
Myers is perhaps the most iconic slasher in movie history, and Jamie Lee Curtis makes her brilliant debut as young Laurie Strode. The movie does a lot with a little, generating scares out of a distant figure staring at the characters and various creepy music cues. You can ignore the numerous sequels, but you can't ignore the 1978 classic. Number 9. Alien. When it comes to space horror, it doesn't get much better than Alien.
Right, I'll be honest with you. When I first saw Alien, the first Aliens that I saw was the second one, which was James Cameron's Aliens. That to me was like the best one at the time. I believe that was released in like 1986. Obviously with Sigourney Weaver and other characters that was in there. And I preferred that one at that time. And it took me years, guys, to watch this first one. Because I remember watching it when probably I'm talking like when I was in my teens maybe, from when I watched this one. And I don't think I enjoyed it that much because I was just all for James Cameron at the time. Because you got to remember as well that back in '97, he created Titanic, his own movie, and obviously people that movie just took off literally. So everyone was all for Titanic with James Cameron. Excuse me. So this didn't really get much watch from me anyway, this original, but I did watch it at least 3 or 4 years ago. I bought this on DVD at the time, and I actually loved it. I thought this was obviously it's the same story from this one to the second one. Obviously directed by Ridley Scott. Ridley Scott to me is one of the best directors because before this film he directed. After this film, he directed Blade Runner. That was back in '82. And that was with Harrison Ford and Rutger Hauer. Brilliant acting in that film anyway. Great contrast in that film as well. It was like a futuristic film anyway. So this film I really enjoyed this film, really good. But so I couldn't compare the two from Alien to Aliens, the second one. You can't compare the two, there's no point. It's like watching Heath Ledger's Dark Knight towards Joaquin Phoenix, the Joker. You can't compare the two because it's a totally different story. You know what I mean? So he's like that.
What the hell is that?
Jesus Christ.
Alien could have been made in the 21st century, such is the strength of its set design, performances, and practical effects. Absolutely nothing about this film has been dated, and it's just as effective today as it was in 1979. Like Halloween, the story is your basic slasher. An alien gets loose on a spaceship and hunts the crew.
Good acting as well in this, I thought. Proper edge of the seat, right?
Dallas?
But Ridley Scott's assured direction prevents things from getting corny and cliche, and Sigourney Weaver's Ripley is one of the best protagonists in horror history. It is perhaps the greatest blending of science fiction and horror ever put to screen.
So, before we carry on, I believe that the name Ripley, it was going to be played by a bloke. It was going to be played by a guy. And apparently Sigourney Weaver grabbed hold of the script and said, like, I can play this part. Because at the time she was a bit of a tomboy anyway, Sigourney Weaver. And obviously they gave her a screen test. And the rest is history.
Number 8. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre. What isn't scary about a crazed lunatic chasing people with a chainsaw? This is perhaps one of the rawest and most visceral films ever released, despite showing no on-screen blood or gore.
Now, I don't know what it is about this film. It's a classic. It's got all the elements to a horror film, this one. It's a bit like Halloween. It's got all the elements to it. Leatherface, great storyline, but they got this storyline basically from a guy called Ed Gein back in the 1950s. I think he came from a religious background. His mother was religious. This is a true story. And he was raised up in Texas somewhere. Probably where they based this. And he basically went insane after when his mum passed. And I think his brother already moved away. And he was left with no one, basically. He had no friends, nothing like that. He had no television, no radio, or anything like that in the house. So he was basically left brassic. He had nothing. And it turned out that after months and months and months being on his own, he went crazy, insane, which he probably would do. And he did things that you don't normally do. I think he was reading in the newspapers, apparently, that if he saw someone that was, if he read someone that had been buried near where he lived, he would wait and then go on the same night where there's no one about, and then he'd dig up the graves and use I won't say what, but he'd use the object that was actually in the graves, and he would do things with them, basically. And obviously he got caught, he got found, and he got tried and whatever, and he served time in prison for years, and then I think he died in like 1984, and I think he was a model prisoner as well in America somewhere. So he died in 84. So these movies, these Texas Chainsaw Massacres, came from a guy called Ed Gein. You can probably look that up in your research and history stuff like that. You know, if you're into serial killers like me, he'll be on there. So this is where it comes from.
Made for as little as $80,000, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre has the atmosphere of a snuff film. The cheap, low-budget aesthetic lends it a dirty and grimy feeling. Like maybe we're watching something we shouldn't be watching. It's just pure backwoods violence and depravity, and it will likely be too much for some viewers.
Now don't you cry, none. Old Grandpa's the best. It won't hurt a bit.
In fact, the film was highly controversial upon release, with many taking note of its sadistic violence and unsettling storyline. But it's now rightfully regarded as a masterpiece, and Leatherface remains one of horror's most terrifying
Join 888 Casino today and play with £88 for free.
Antagonists. Number 7. Night of the Living Dead. George A. Romero created, or at least popularized, the zombie genre with Night of the Living Dead.
Now, I only saw this about 5 years ago. I bought this on DVD itself, and it was in colour when I bought it. I really enjoyed this for 1968. Like it says there, it's a really, really good classic film, and I can understand as to why it was probably wanted to get banned at the time, because I think the Cold War was still going on, the Vietnam War was going on, and as soon as this movie was released at that time, I don't think people were ready for it, basically, because of what it encounters in the film. But I really, really enjoyed it, and to this day I still enjoy it. The acting's obviously a bit cheesy, a bit corny, obviously, but it's still up there with... And if I was to bring a top 20 horror movies, this would be on the list for me, because it did deliver an atmosphere of... It ain't good atmosphere, but it does its job, basically. So if you've never seen this, guys, I suggest you do. Night of the Living Dead. Original. So I suggest you watch it. Even if it's black and white, it doesn't really make a difference. It's still
coming to get you, Barbara.
Those looking for Dawn of the Dead style gore need not apply, as this movie's violence is incredibly tame when compared to Romero's later works. But the movie's claustrophobic setting, black and white cinematography, and lack of cinematic flourishes lend it a degree of authenticity, as if we're watching an old home movie of the initial zombie outbreak.
Officials are quoted as explaining that since the brain of a ghoul has been activated by the radiation, the plan is, kill the brain, and you kill the ghoul.
The movie also contains an intelligent racial undercurrent, with many seeing Ben as a symbol of domestic racism, and an analog to topical figures like Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X.
Just wanted to crush them.
He's really good in this. I think he's the best actor in this film. You could say he's like the main character of the protagonist. Yeah, you'll like this film if you've never watched it.
They scattered through the air like bugs.
Number 6, Rosemary's Baby.
Right, so this film, never seen it. I don't really want to see it because it was directed by a fucking arsehole that I can't stand, and I think he's been banned in so many countries. I think it was, oh God, what was his name? He'll probably say it on here. I had his name just then, but it's popped out of my head again. Obviously directed Rosemary's Baby. I think it was one of the very earliest films, and it became big, of course, but I've never looked keen on this film, to be honest, and I'm not. I'll be honest, it's not for me, this. I'm trying to think of the guy's name, but it'll probably come to me.
Everyone knows the 60s as a time of great political and cultural upheaval, and like Night of the Living Dead, Rosemary's Baby uses horror as a means to explore topical issues. In this case, the women's
Roman Polanski. That's his name, who directed this film.
Liberation movement.
Maybe all this is coincidence, but one thing is for sure, they have a coven and they want my baby.
On its surface, Rosemary's Baby is about a pregnant woman who believes that her Satanist neighbors are using her baby as a vessel for the Antichrist. It works wonderfully as a simple horror story, but it's mainly used for allegorical purposes. Rosemary feels progressively helpless throughout the story, unable to turn to anyone for help.
Help me! Oh, baby. Somebody help me!
Her autonomy is taken away, and she is constantly placed at the whims of outside influences. The feeling of utter vulnerability the movie horrifically captures is scarier than any demon baby.
What have you done to it? What have you done to its eyes?
Number 5, The Exorcist.
Now, this, in 2003, they did a countdown, I believe it was called 100 Greatest Scary Movie Moments. And from what I remember, this movie, Exorcist, came number 2. And I was shocked. I was surprised that this movie came number 2 out of 100. And I can't remember what was number 1. But I think what was number 1 has not even been on it yet. And it might actually be on this video, I'm not sure. But if it is, I'll probably remember. This film is probably one of the greatest horror movies ever made. And it's obviously been proven that. But it's not about ghosts and ghoulies and things like that, this film. This is where it's a bit confusing with it. Because as soon as you say horror movie, you think of ghosts and ghoulies and witches and whatever else. It's actually not. That's what's so shocking about this film. It's basically, this movie's about good and evil. And it certainly proves it in this film. I'm going to be honest, this will probably be on my top 10 list. It's such a good film. And the girl who plays Regan... Linda Blair, I can't remember if she ever won an award for this part. I'm not sure. If she didn't, she must have gone close. But she should have won an award for this part, because I've not seen, or ever since this film, seen a young actress or an actor go as deep as the way Linda Blair did for this character. She suffered a lot for this film, behind the scenes. Not because there was arseholes with her or anything like that. It's because of how they had to film. And if you've seen this kind of film before, you probably know what I'm talking about. Guys, if you've never seen this, I suggest you do. It's such a fucking good film. Excuse my language. It really, really is. I'm getting carried away with it. Because I am a horror buff anyway. I'm a big movie fan. This is the way to do it. This should be your number one. Forget any other Exorcist movies out there. This is number one to watch.
The Exorcist is touted by many as the scariest film ever made. But don't let that distract you from the movie's genuinely fantastic execution.
Keep away! The soul is mine!
It is certainly scary, but it's also an impeccably made movie in its own right. Everyone knows about Regan's demonic possession, which obviously contributes most of the movie's scares.
Such a classic, that
Amen.
But at its core, Exorcist is a deeply personal tale about Father Damien Karras, a Jesuit priest suffering from a crisis of faith and harboring deep feelings of guilt in his mother's recent death. The movie is about finding God just as much as it's about fighting the devil.
This movie basically has all the elements for a horror film. It just has everything to it. Great acting, great script writing, great contrast, great graphics, everything on it. For 1973, I can understand why it was banned for 25 years. I don't think William Peter Blatty, the one that directed it, obviously wanted it like that. But, you know, in a way, it's like, you know, I remember back in 1999, and this film was re-released, obviously now 25 years later at that time. And I remember being at high school, probably in the 3rd or 4th year, and there was a big group of us, and they were talking about this movie, about this girl that's been possessed by a demon. And I remember the conversation, but I also remember thinking, in that little crowd, thinking, I'm sure I've seen that before. I'm sure I remember something like that when I was a kid, when I've seen something, probably shitting myself at the time. But there was literally raving about this film at my high school in 99, 2000 at least, and they were saying to me, Liam, you've got to see it. You've got to see this film. It's brilliant. It's got all the elements of a horror film. It's class. It's this. It's that. And I ain't joking. This was the talk of the year for this film when I was obviously a kid. So now, obviously, years and years later, I bought the film, watched it, and then I recognised the girl in it, obviously, from when I was a kid, because I was scared to death when I first saw that. You know, the glowing eyes, you know, the grey eyes and stuff. It does get to you. So, obviously, to this day, it's still a massive, huge film.
The former lends the movie its emotional heft. The latter, its iconic and allegedly heart attack-inducing frights.
I think the point is to make us despair. To see ourselves as animal and ugly. To reject the possibility that God could love us.
Number 4, The Shining.
Right, The Shining, I remember now. The Shining beat Exorcist back in like 2003. I know that's like a hell of a long time ago. There's been obviously horror movies been out since then, like you got Saw movies and whatever else. Or the Insidious and Conjuring and all that. The Shining is one of the greatest horror films ever made. Directed by Stanley Kubrick, which we'll probably explain in a minute. I do believe that Shelley Duvall, who plays... Oh, God, what's her face in it? What's her name in it now? Wendy. Who plays Wendy. She had a hard time at this time filming this film because I think she mentioned that she just broke up with her boyfriend after a few years or something like that, and then obviously she got given this part. And obviously they had to move outskirts to this hotel, and I believe that hotel is actually real. It's a real hotel. I don't believe it's full of ghosts and ghoulies or whatever else, and full of ghosts or whatever else. I don't believe it's haunted or anything like that. They're saying it is, but I think it's because of this film. That's all the reason why I'm saying it. But it's such a good film. Great storyline, obviously followed by the book, Stephen King's book. But I understand as well that Stephen King, he actually didn't even like this film. He didn't like it. But I think that's not surprising because he's like that anyway, Stephen King, apparently. But, you know, yeah, I really enjoyed this. And I remember seeing the advert to it as well, and it's just a simple advert. I won't say what it is, so you might come across it.
There have been really many haunted house movies throughout the years, but The Shining is the greatest of them all.
Hi, Lloyd. A little slow tonight, isn't it?
Like many movies on this list, The Shining uses its haunted hotel trappings to explore deeper and more personal themes. The core story involves the Torrance family moving into a haunted hotel over the winter. Of course, the performances and Stanley Kubrick's filmmaking are both transcendent, but the movie generates much of its scares from the personal.
Hello, Danny. Come and play with us.
Exploring themes of alcoholism, child abuse, family dysfunction, and cabin fever, The Shining deftly combines its horrifying supernatural scares with a deeply troubling story of mental degradation.
Here's Johnny!
We don't know which aspect is scarier. Number 3, Bride of Frankenstein. This is widely regarded as director James Whale's masterpiece.
Now, I've never seen this film, Bride of Frankenstein, 1935. Never seen it. I believe the original Frankenstein was 1931. Obviously, this will be like a sequel or something like that. I've never seen it. I want to see it. Obviously, it would be proper cliche movie now, obviously, but it's a classic. What can you say? Boris Karloff, right there. That's coming out of, looks like he's coming out of a building or a grave or something. He's created all kinds of characters, Boris Karloff. He was one of the greats. And I think he helped create this character as well, Frankenstein. Yeah, never seen it. Love to. So give us a shout out in the comments if you've ever seen this film. If you believe it's really good and you want me to watch it, I'll watch it. It's no problem to me, and then I'll give you my overview.
And this is the man who gave us classics like The Invisible Man and the original Frankenstein.
I think it will thrill you. It may shock you.
I remember now.
It might even horrify you. So if any of you feel that you do not care to subject your nerves to such a strain, now is your chance to, well, we've warned you.
Improving on the first film in nearly every way, Bride of Frankenstein may just be the greatest sequel ever made. Boris Karloff returns in his iconic role, and this time he's joined by the classically hairdoed Elsa Lanchester as the bride.
Kit Michael.
Friend?
The movie is weird and campy, but it also just might be the greatest example of gothic horror ever put to film. It uses Christian imagery to comment on the monster's identity as a man-made abomination, deepening the themes of both the original film and Mary Shelley's source novel.
She's alive! Alive!
It is the perfect distillation of the Frankenstein myth.
Novi League Challenge at Novibet. Predict the final score of our match of the day and win a
mythos. Number 2, Jaws.
Right, Jaws. Another classic film. I'm surprised it's number 2 on this, to be honest. That is really, really good. My favourite character in this film, believe it or not, I mean, I like Roy Schneider's acting in this. He's really, they're all good in it. They're all really good. It's all believable. But Richard Dreyfuss, I think, is brilliant in this film. And he's laughing it as well. His laughing just makes me laugh. I think he's just got one of those laughs that's just laughing too. It's just brilliant. I just like the concept of this film. And I believe that Steven Spielberg, the director who did this film, he had a very hard time with that mechanical shark at that time. Apparently it wasn't working very well. And he had a couple of names for it as well, like, you know, the son of the bitch doesn't even work properly kind of thing. That's what he used to say. He couldn't stand that mechanical. So if you obviously notice that as soon as the movie starts of Jaws, you see a couple, spoiler alert, see a couple together on the beach, everyone else is there, and then they run off, obviously enjoying themselves. And she goes for a swim, thinking that he's going to come in. The guy passes out on the beach, completely oblivious, completely drunk. She's out there now, obviously on her own. And then if you notice, obviously she's all over the place. Then that's, you know, making it look like it's the shark that's pulling her. But I believe that was strings that was pulling her from all directions. So from her point of view, that was really good acting. Obviously, they obviously had to make it believable. But there was a lot of times that they used other things rather than the mechanical shark that they had. Because I think they waited till near the end of the movie to use that mechanical shark. And yeah, I think he had a very, very hard time with that. But it paid off in the end. It paid off. So yeah, great film. Another great film.
Steven Spielberg's filmography is generally recognized as being magical, fantastical, and whimsical. And then there's Jaws.
Beach is closed. No swimming. By order of the Amity PD.
Despite its more grounded story of a man-eating shark plaguing the beaches of Amity Island, Jaws still retains Spielberg's dexterous directorial style. He manages to turn the movie into a cinematic tour de force, complete with thrilling camera work, proficient editing, horrific violence, and iconic musical cues from John Williams.
And a great line. One of a kind of a line.
There's also the timeless performances from Roy Scheider, Robert Shaw, and Richard Dreyfuss, who help make the action-packed third act just as fun and dramatic as it is terrifying.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
Jaws birthed the summer...
And I believe that line wasn't even scripted. Roy Scheider just said it.
Kept people out of the ocean and permanently altered our perception of sharks. It's pure movie magic.
Smile, you son of a...
I have seen the majority of the movies on this list, and I can agree, everyone interested in horror needs to see them at least once. Before we unveil our top pick, here are some honorable mentions. Get Out, a nail-biting blend of thriller and horror, Jordan Peele's directorial debut is scary and topical.
I really enjoyed that film. I thought it was bloody good. It's obviously about, should I say, racism, but it's not about racism. There's more to it than that, obviously, from what I'm saying. But I really enjoyed it, and his acting was really good. They're all good in it, anyway. And it gets you, probably when it comes near to the end of the movie, good twist, really good twist. Spoiler alert again. And it makes you feel like you are in the room with him at some point in the movie, and then you think, holy shit, what do I do now? How do I do this? How do I get out? That's why it's called Get Out. Really, really good film. I give it a good 10 out of 10 for this film.
This bitch is crazy. Bitch is crazy.
The Silence of the Lambs. Anthony Hopkins' Hannibal Lecter will never not be scary.
A census taker once tried to test me. I ate his liver with some fava beans and a nice Chianti.
Excuse me. So that film, Silence of the Lambs. Now, you probably remember the scene where you first meet Hannibal Lecter, and you got the camera. Obviously, you're following Clarice Starling. You're following her past the prison cells. Something happens a little bit there, but then she comes across. Now, when you notice when that camera pans towards Hannibal Lecter, he's just stood there in the middle of the room. That wasn't scripted either. So the script that he got is that he sat down writing or drawing or whatever he's doing, at his desk. But because he got hold of the script, he just turned around and said, well, no, I think we might have to change that up. I think it's best what would happen if I just stand there? So let the camera come towards me, but let's have a bit of a shock where I'm just stood there. And obviously they filmed it, and that's the film that you see now. And it paid off, it worked. Because apparently it reported that, especially in the cinemas when they watched it for the first time, people was a bit shocked, like he was just stood there, which makes it more creepier, obviously, for the character. So yeah, good acting. Good
Rabid, a terrifying body horror zombie film from director David Cronenberg, the master of the genre.
For heaven's sake, what happened to you?
Oh, I can't remember anything.
Carrie, Stephen King's exploration of bullying remains relevant and
great
horrifying.
Film. This is a good film. Proper like religious movie. This. There's a great scene with Carrie right at the end, another spoiler alert, right at the end when it's all on fire, won't say a word, and there's a good shot of her when the camera's out. And when she's walking out the building, they do it slow motion, and it's when she walks out the building and the whole fucking building's on fire, she's just literally casually walking out, covered in blood, obviously, pig's blood. And it's just a good shot, that, and it's just, it gets you an edge straight away, because obviously you already know what's happened in there, because you've just seen it for yourself, and it's very, very shocking, obviously. It's such a good scene, that. So yeah, I'll put that down as one of the greatest horror movies ever made.
Scream. Wes Craven's meta-nod to the slasher genre perfectly merges horror with comedy.
Sorry.
Oh my God, Randy, I thought you were dead.
I probably should be. I never thought I'd be so happy to be a virgin.
Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go...
Yeah, that got me edge of the seat for a thriller. Literally, that was probably my first guessing game for a movie, to find out who the hell it was obviously it turned out that it was 2 of them.
Go into your settings and switch on notifications.
Number 1, Psycho. Psycho has lost something in its ascension through the pop culture consciousness. The numerous twists are all well known, so new viewers might not have the same experience as audiences who went in blind back in 1960.
Yes, Mr. Lowry.
Carolyn?
So, played by Janet Leigh, which is Jamie Lee Curtis's mother. Obviously, Jamie Lee Curtis went on to make Halloween. This was really good for 1960. Alfred Hitchcock, director. He already directed The Birds, I think, even before this was probably like... The Birds, I think, was like 1957, 58. Might have been a bit later than that, I don't know. This was really good. It was surprisingly good because you do spend a lot of time with this character, Janet Leigh. Really good. I think you're with her for about 45 minutes to an hour, maybe even more than that. And then obviously something has happened. And then it moves on. Norman Bates, is it? I think it's Norman Bates' character. I can't remember his real name, but he played it really well. The hotel owner, obviously. He was really good in this film. I thought the acting for 1960 was really good. I didn't think it was that cheesy, to be honest. I really enjoyed it. It got me into it anyway. I was drawn into it straight away. I remember when they did a remake of it, though, it was literally 2AT, and I think it came out in like 2000, 2002 or something like that. To me, it was a fucking flop. You can't beat the originals. You can't do it. You know what I mean? To me, you can't do it. It's like when they did A Nightmare on Elm Street. All right, so you had Nightmare on Elm Street 1984, classic. All the elements was there for a classic, for A Nightmare on Elm Street. Robert Englund was fucking brilliant in that film, who played Freddy Krueger, obviously. And his career just took off. When they did the remake in 2010, I remember watching that at cinemas, and I was sat there. I was on my own as well. I was sat there, looking at the screen. I remember thinking to myself, what a bag of shit this is. And I already seen the actors before, or some of the actors, and yeah, it wasn't enjoyable at all. It just didn't follow up to the original. I think the only one that really made it for a remake at the time was Halloween, which was a remake. I think that was Rob Zombie's Halloween. That weren't too bad. That was all right. I would have gave that a 7 out of 10. Where an Nightmare on Elm Street remake, I would have gave that a fucking 2. And that's just being nice.
Marion still isn't in?
No, Mr. Lowry, but then she's always a bit late on Monday mornings.
Buzz me the minute she comes in. Call her sister. No one's answering at the house.
But our knowledge of the twists doesn't make Psycho any less enjoyable. The direction, cinematography, and performances, particularly that of Anthony Perkins, all remain commendable. And the story can still be enjoyed as a thrilling blend of detective fiction and slasher horror.
We're all in our private traps, clamped in them, and none of us can ever get out. We scratch and claw, but only at the air, only at each other.
The movie also helped pave new ground in regards to cultural norms, including its depictions of on-screen violence and sexuality. Psycho had a profound impact on both cinema and wider American culture. Therefore, it may just be the greatest horror movie ever made.
They'll see, and they'll know, and they'll say, why, she wouldn't even harm a fly.
And I think he went on, Anthony Perkins, to make another 3 or 4 of these movies. My girlfriend told me not long ago that I think she watched the 3rd one, probably in the 80s, and she said it was crap. Literally a lot of crap, she said. But he was good in it, apparently, but the movie was crap. So I think this is like his finest hour for this film, Psycho.
Do you agree with our...
Right, there you have it. There's my little tiny stories for each horror movie that you've just seen. I really, really hope you've enjoyed this video tonight. Don't forget, this is my first reaction video. I really, really hope you enjoyed this video, guys. I really do. I mean, I've enjoyed watching these, and I've enjoyed talking about it. I really do. So if you've come across this video and you like it, give us a massive thumbs up. And don't forget to subscribe. If you do come across this video, you haven't subscribed, please do. Push the little bell icon in the top right corner of your screens, even on your mobile phones, and you'll be notified every time I upload. It's as easy as that, my little gamers. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for watching. Take me breakfast, and I shall see you soon. By the way, I will go back to Little Nightmares Part 2 very, very, very soon. Okay, guys, have a good one. Take it easy.